Commission. You may appeal the decision by filing a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Per the Tennessee Open Meetings Act, Public Chapter Number 300, members of the public are invited now to provide comment on items germane to the items of the agenda. Does anyone want to comment about something that is germane? We'll do that as we come to the items then. Matt, do I hear a motion for the approval of the agenda?
I so move.
You got a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Approval of the minutes.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the April 8th meeting.
Okay. Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anything on public comment that's not on the agenda? Does somebody have something they want to share with the Parking Commission? Then I'll take this opportunity to jump in there. When Ms. Alcorn comes in, or if she comes today, I wanted to thank her for her column in the Sunday Tennessean a few weeks ago. It was great. Appreciate her bringing up. And I'm wondering, with the focus that we have on pedestrian safety, is it possible to have, like every month or so, have a follow-up about what's happened? A pedestrian's been killed at this intersection. Here's what the cause was, and here's what we're doing going forward. Is that feasible? I guess I'm asking staff, police.
It certainly is. We can get that information to you.
Thank you. I get the police reports online, but it seems like more and more that's happening. Thank you. Does anyone else have anything else on the commission? Okay. All right. The next thing is approval of the consent agenda. Is there anything that we're going to move out of the consent agenda to defer? Okay. Item 5.1, CD 17, mandatory referral 2024M 003 AB-001, a request to abandon a portion of unimproved alley number 1827, right-of-way from Montrose Avenue to West Kirkwood Avenue, requested by property owners. Item 5.2, CD 19, mandatory referral 2024M-004 AB-001, a request to abandon a portion of alley number 149, right-of-way from President Ronald Reagan Way, westward to Dead End, then southeastward to Lee Avenue, requested by Barge Design Solutions. Item 5.3, CD 5, authorization for a new traffic signal at Ellington Parkway and Douglas Avenue, requested by NDOT. Item 5.4, CD 29, authorization for a new all-way stop at Anderson Road and Kenwood Drive, requested by NDOT. Item 5.5, CD 21, authorization for a new all-way stop at Clay Street, 9th Avenue North, requested by NDOT. Item 5.6, CD 33, authorization to reduce posted speed limit on Preston Road from 40 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour between Pettis Road and Cambridge Road, requested by NDOT. 5.7 CD 19, authorization to change 15-time limited parking to 30-minute time limited parking on the south side of Junior Gilliam Way from 4th Avenue North to 3rd Avenue North, requested by the Nashville Sounds. 5.8 CD 19, authorization for removal of 4 unmetered parking spaces on the north side of Korean Veterans Boulevard at 4th Avenue South for installation of ADA accessible WeGo bus platform, requested by WeGo.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second? All in favor? Right. On to the regular agenda of item 6.1, Vision Zero informational update.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to give you a brief update. My name is Marty Sewell from NDOT. I am sad today that my Vision Zero coordinator had to move on to other things, and so I'll be filling in today for her, using her presentation, so bear with me. I hope I can get through the whole thing for you. But I wanted to just give you a brief listing of some of the things that are on the way in the next year or two based off of our year 2 set of projects and also programs, and also looking at how we've allocated our funding for the surplus budget that we had. So if you go ahead and go to that next slide. And if you recall, with Vision Zero, we had the 5 E's, which is our engineering, education, evaluation, encouragement, and I left one off. What did I leave? Anyway, so this is focusing on the engineering project list on the first one. If we go on to the next slide. Okay. And just again, to give you just an overview, this is a little difficult to read, but we're talking about doing several speed studies and that will have changes associated with them, and that those roads are listed there, like Old Hickory, Haywood, Brick Church, Harding, and you see the other ones. Also we're also in the process of working on a Rosa Parks safety study at the moment, and working with other corridors that are listed there. We'll also be working with our Safe Routes to School program, doing some enforcement enhancements and also other changes on the ground to the way the streets are, so that within a quarter mile of our HIN, or like high injury network. Continuing to expand our tactical urbanism program, and you see some of the other items there as well, including those the LPIs, the pedestrian signal updates at several intersections. Moving on to education encouragement activities that are going on. Again, our Safe Routes to School program will continue was growing. We've got a toolkit that's been created, and that is being implemented. And also other events, the Open and Play Streets events, where we open up the street for the community to enjoy. Those things will continue, as well as drafting PSAs, public service announcements, and other outreach events that will be, you'll hear our team out and about throughout the community presenting on Vision Zero at various community events. And the last section here is just a listing of several projects that we're going to be able to fund with the surplus budget from last year. And so a lot of things on Levin and Pike. Dickerson Pike is being able to take advantage of that with several of the intersection improvements that you see listed there. And also we're able to go in with the school zone marking enhancement program that is being implemented as well. And let's see. The last thing I wanted to hit on were just the speed limit assessment studies that are underway. You can see the list of streets that we're targeting right now. They're out there understanding what the existing speeds are, understanding what they should be, and then how we can go about making changes to ensure that we can have that type of improvement. And this is related to that same thing, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to address them or do my best.
Hi, I just have a question on sort of safe routes to school versus school zone marking enhancement. I know I've been working with NDOT as well as the school board member on Hillsborough High School, for example, and getting those signs in, which I think are yet to go in because of maybe spring weather, it sounds like. But how closely are we working with MNPS on that? I know that, there was a lot of kind of back and forth on that one in particular, in part because MNPS had changed the site plan, and so, we kind of, but that maybe wasn't relayed to, NDOT when it happened, and so can you just go into the details about that a little bit? Because I know a lot of our school zones aren't marked and don't have safe routes to them, or to bus stops nearby that people need to get to.
And Director, do you mind helping me with this question here? I know that you're in the weeds with this one in particular. This is very important, obviously, so.
So we are working very closely. Oh, sorry, thank you. Diana Alacone, Director of Transportation Multimodal Infrastructure, thank you. We are working actually very closely with Metro Nashville School Board, not board, but the school system as a whole. And we are actually coordinating every single effort that we do. So I have to go back and check on where we are with Hillsborough, but we're looking at everyone. I will share that with the Vision Zero, we're focused first on the Tier 1 high entry networks. That's really where a lot of our focus is going first. I'll also check and see if we're looking to make improvements over there tied with the surplus dollars that we received, and we're doing the school zones. So one of the things with Safe Routes to School that we've recognized is we really haven't done a great job because the schools have worked in their own silo, and we've worked in a silo, and we were very siloed. Let me just leave it at that. We're not siloed anymore, so we've been working very closely with them, and even with putting together a design to go back and do markings on the street for recognizing a school zone so people will slow down. We were very fortunate that council gave us surplus dollars last year that we're able to get 15 schools done over the summer. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot of money that we need to spend at each one of them. And our hope is that in the next round of the CSPs, we can ask for more dollars and continue doing that so that we get every school done. But I will tell you now, as schools are being built, we're having those conversations on the forefront where we were never having them before about how we move the cars, how we move the kids, where we need to put the crosswalks, where we need to put if it needs to be a hawk or if it needs to be an RFB or what does it need to be. We're having quite a challenge in one school that is a high school that seems like a lot of the kids are driving, and nobody anticipated that, and that's actually locking down the street at first thing in the morning and in the afternoon. So we're working on what that circulation needs to look like from that perspective as well. And so I would say we have one of the best relationships that we've ever had with them, and it's super exciting because it is a constant conversation that we're having with them on a regular basis.
Okay, I really appreciate that, and I know we all probably notice, in 3 weeks when school's out, traffic is suddenly so much better, even at times when we shouldn't be thinking about school traffic during the day, and it really adds to so much of our traffic. But as a parent of a middle schooler who has a safe route to school and is able to walk, it is life-changing for families to know that your kid has a safe route to school, that you don't have to, watch them.
Yes, and we can come back and bring you the 15 schools that we're doing the actual school zone project with and what that design will actually look like. I think one of the things I want to share real quick while we're still talking a little bit about that is that the school zone that has been designed will be replicated everywhere. So it's a consistent design, and everyone will then know, hey, when they see this design, they know they're in a school zone. And so we're super excited about this and looking forward to getting it out. But again, our biggest focus is starting on the high entry network tied with the schools that are actually on our tier 1s. Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner?
I had one. I saw that Open and Play Streets was on there, and that was presented at a Walk Bike Nashville membership meeting as a great way to kind of engage the community, and it was supposed to be a very easy process for people to be able to fill out and do. And then I've heard some feedback that it's not as easy as presented, that there's a lot of signature requirements, and I was wondering if that could be something that NDOT could work on to potentially improve the process, improve the flow, maybe give a little bit more direction about how that's supposed to work?
So actually, the Open Streets, Play Streets events is really geared toward more toward neighborhoods than anything. Open Streets a little bit different because Open Streets is actually, you're shutting down traffic and you're moving traffic in a different direction. And you're opening up a large section of the street to allow for it to be, for other modes to be on it and not have the conflicts with the car. Play Streets a little bit smaller where it's done by neighborhood. What we are going to be doing, or actually what we're doing and working on right now, is we are coming up with a standard design of closing the block. And then you just submit it as an individual for your block, but you have to have 75% of your block agree. That's why their signature, you may like it, you may like it, you may hate it. If you do not have consistency on the block, that is very problematic because there is property rights that have to be. But as if you're having a block party and everybody's in agreement, you can actually then come in, fill out the application, pick up the barricades, follow the standard process of setting the barricades up and have a party, and it doesn't cost you anything. So we're moving in that direction for Play Streets where we're trying to make it simpler, but if it's an HOA, it's just your HOA actually asking for that block party, and then we hold them 100% accountable for it. So if it's done on an individual basis, yes, sir, it does require signatures because you have to make sure all your neighbors are on the same page. But if it's more set up by the HOA that's kind of collaborating the whole neighborhood and everything, and their board is speaking for the neighborhood, we're accepting that as well.
Okay, so when you say HOA, do you mean like the legal HOA or do you mean like a neighborhood association?
Neighborhood association, homeowners association, along that line, civic association, those type of associations that's going to speak to and make sure that we're not going to get the call and the complaints.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
On these major corridors, my observation is why it's so difficult to walk is there's a limited number of places where you can cross the street as well. And it seems like on some of these corridors, I think Dickerson Pike, some of the accidents have been related to the fact that people randomly choose a place to cross the street. So what are we doing on crosswalk enhancements as far as several things? Creating more of them and utilizing any kind of technology or other devices, other ideas that may be out there to further enhance those crosswalks, illuminate them at night, make them more visible, make them noticeable so that folks are not crossing, people are not crossing randomly, which scares me as a driver.
And Director can join me here after I say this one part, but we started with the policy itself, and it's part of our Complete Streets Implementation Guide to have a pedestrian crossing policy. We've given it a lot of thought, and so that it can be applied consistently across the board whenever those requests, and help you make decisions as well on those. And what do you want to add?
So I want to actually give you some examples of that. And I think this is where we find we have some really great opportunities. That was one of the reasons that we went for the Safe Streets for All and was successful and get it for Nolensville, because Nolensville is actually one of the pikes that is on our high injury network. And so it is challenging, I want to tell you, and also you do have to follow the MUTCD. There is a standard for crosswalks, and that's why it was best to have a crosswalk policy that was in line with the MUTCD. Now, the good thing about it is they've actually lightened up on it and actually have now focused more about it being based on the pedestrian movement and not on the car movement. So it allows us to do more crosswalks than we've ever been able to do in past years. But I want to just use an example over at Dickerson, and if y'all ever get a chance to drive over there to take an example, there we've actually did a tactical urbanism project. Now just remember Nolensville, Dickerson, Gallatin, except for what's south of Briley belongs to the city, and over in, I'm missing a street, Murfreesboro. Those are all actually all TDOTs, but they've been great partners. So over on Dickerson, because we're seeing more crashes, it seems lately over there, especially involving cars and pedestrians, they actually allowed us to do a painted sidewalk So we actually went in and did a whole project in partnership with TDOT, ourselves, Civic Design, Walk Bike. We were all partners in it, and we actually did this design of a sidewalk as well as a new crossing with the refuge. And then on top of that, NES came in and put in the bright lights and illumination. So there you have an example of where you have the defined spaces for the pedestrian, for the car. You have lighting so it can be seen. And we're going to continue that practice. As a matter of fact, today I just met with staff before I came over here. We're applying for another grant through the state for Dickerson to look at doing 6 additional sidewalks. So funding is also a big challenge of ours, and that's going to allow us to get funding to come in here and place up and put maybe more of the RFBs, which are the rapid flashing beacon lights, so it's more noticeable when a pedestrian is crossing. So we're super excited about that. We feel like that's going to be a really great opportunity. These are projects we have ready. The design's done. We just need construction dollars, and that's what TDOT is looking for us, is to actually be able to go and implement. And part of that is recognizing that we need to pretty much do a crosswalk like at every intersection, not every 3 intersections, so that the choice is actually not requiring someone to walk 100 or 200 feet to cross to come back 100 feet, that they're going to be able to make that crossing at 100 feet to their point of destination. So those are some of the examples I want to use that I think are starting to make a difference, and we need a lot more of them. You're very welcome. Thank you.
Go ahead.
We're on Dickerson Road. Can you tell me the cross street with that, where that is? Thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you. It's at Queen Anne and Gizzard. I wanted to say Lizard. Grizzard Avenue. And that's where we did the enhanced crosswalk as well as the the walking path. And it's actually really cool. We did that, and it looks like a piano on the walking path. So it's keyboard. So it was actually, we kind of used the asphalt as a place to show where art can be a part of the public place for walking and enjoying, and really but defining the space.
Thank you. Any other questions? Really appreciate that presentation.
Thank you.
We will move on to item 6.2. Mobile food and merchandise truck vending legislative update by Ms. Taylor. Please state your name and who you're with for the record, if you don't mind, prior to speaking.
Hello, I'm Lindsay Taylor with NDOT.
And Derek Hagerty, also with NDOT. And we're here today to talk about upcoming ordinance for truck vending. And Lindsay, I'll let you do most of the talking.
We spent an extensive amount of time with our wonderful legal ladies on this, and came to the conclusion that we do need to do an ordinance to go from the pilot program, the mobile food truck program, to an actual permit. Like I said, tremendous work by the legal department to get us to this draft ordinance. We're hoping to get your approval to move forward, to ask the council to allow the Traffic and Parking Commission to approve the permit. We will come back after council approves this ordinance and present the procedures, locations, enforcement, to have your input and help us move forward with that. But we have to get the ordinance passed through council before. We're hoping to get your approval today so we can, the filing deadline, I believe, is May 28th for the first meeting in June. So we're hoping to get on that one.
Are there any points or topics? I'd like to give time for questions on the commission before we bring up a motion, but is there anything else you would like to highlight in this ordinance that we need to know about?
Yeah, I think I would just like to highlight, and really Lindsay has done all the work on this with the legal team, but there's been a tremendous amount of coordination done with our partner agencies. Currently for mobile vending, it's a little bit of a kind of choose your own adventure. You know, you reach out to fire department, Metro Water for the grease traps, NDOT for some of the permits. This would really streamline that process, making it much easier for the operators. So you just submit through NDOT. Using our permitting system, it gets routed to the necessary departments, gets signed off on. Makes it easy to track, easy to process. We think this system, once we get to the rules, which sounds like it'll be August with that timeline, this will make life easier for everyone, including our permit staff, which is part of the reason this came around.
Thank you. Are there any questions from anybody on the commission on this? Go ahead.
I just want to clarify, if I'm remembering correctly, this is just for those that are in the right of way. It wouldn't apply to like the lobster roll truck in Elmington Park, for example, that has to kind of still play the permit game, is that correct?
Correct. This would fall under our right-of-way permitting process, so only applicable to, we changed the verbiage, truck vending in the public right-of-way.
Are y'all anticipating that there be zones to where these would operate, or they could be anywhere on the right of way?
Yes, our goal is to come up with some locations to present to the commission for approval. And we'll be working with our parking enforcement as well.
Great. Any other questions? Not, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, but I want to get the correct verbiage about what we're going to approve for you all to send it up to council.
Yes,
So
we are requesting a truck vending permit. What?
I would say we would want to, y'all want to say that you are recommending it to council for approval.
I make a motion, we recommend to the council for approval.
I will second that motion.
It is first and second. Are there any questions on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Thank you. Item 6.3, authorization for new 65-foot loading zone effective 24/7 and revocation of existing valet lane on east side of Representative John Lewis Way at Peabody Street, requested by True Hilton Hotel. Staff, would you all like, well, first, is there anybody in the audience that would like to have public comment on this? Not staff, could you state your case?
Yes, there's been an approved valet at this location for several years, but it has been abandoned since shortly after COVID. Our valet signs have been taken down, and right now there have been there's some loading and unloading zones signage that has the hotel brand on it. I'd like to formally remove the designated valet zone and replace that with an approved loading zone. The hotel has applied to NDOT for a loading zone at that location. The capacity will be about 3 vehicles, and the time will be 24/7. And the time limits are identified in the Metro Code, and it's normally 30 minutes, and it'd be the same for this.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead.
What happens when people put out their own signs in the right of way?
Metro Code prohibits that. I won't say that doesn't happen, but when it does happen, we'll try to identify who the owner of the sign is and ask them to take it out. In this case, they've posted some signage that's similar to regulatory signage, which technically you can't do. So this is the correct way to do it, is to get it approved by this commission, and then Metro will go and install the correct signage.
Go ahead.
I mean, can we not just, when that happens, take it down or provide notice by mail and then take it down and then fine them? I'm a little concerned that people are just going around making signs that look official, but like have a hotel name on them. Shocking.
If I may, Mr. Chair. Diana Alarcon again. Yes, we do remove signs. We do take them down. If we see them and we know that it's not official sign, we actually will remove it, especially if it's posing a safety issue. In this case, they've had it up for a while, so Andrew was being very doing his due diligence and asked them to remove it and go through the process. So in this chance, we had an opportunity to work with the business versus just going in and shutting it down. So, but in some cases, and a lot of times, we're just going in and removing the signage because 9 out of 10 times it's creating a safety issue.
And they were receptive to our requests to take it down pretty quickly?
Yes, and that's where we are with bringing this back before you today.
I'd also like to point out, this is in a parking pull-off lane. This isn't in the through lane.
Yeah, there is a curb cut there, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
It's been first. Or do we have a second? I'm sorry. It's been first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. Thanks. Item 6.4, authorization for 2-hour limited parking for 4 parking spaces on the south side of South Street, effective 24/7, east of 12th Avenue South, requested by Kimley Horn on behalf of Rochelle Center. Is there anybody from the audience that would like to speak to this item? Staff, if you don't mind providing some context on this.
This is a new development at the corner of South Street and 12th Avenue South. Most of the parking is actually internal to the site, but there is a cutout on the south side of South Street. The developer had asked for 2-hour limited parking for 12 hours a day. NDOT supports the request for 2-hour limited parking, but we're recommending that it's 24/7.
Thank you. Any questions on this item? Go ahead.
Can you provide some more clarification on why we're doing 24/7 instead of the 12-hour, maybe 18-hour? I mean, that doesn't seem like an area that has a lot of 24/7 turnover.
So actually, thank you, Diana Alarcon. This area actually is growing significantly in 12 South, and so just so that we continue to support the businesses, we're finding that a lot of the businesses are open, you know, especially the ones that are restaurants and stuff, and the dynamics and landscaping continues to change, so we just want to make sure that that parking from a time limit is actually stayed available for their guests to patronize the businesses. We may come back at a later date with an adjustment in the number of hours, and so instead of it being a 2-hour limit, if we feel the need to go to 3, which we've seen in some other areas we've done, we'll continue to bring that back. But we are seeing pretty significant growth overall in 12 South. If you remember correctly, we actually came to y'all a few months back and asked for a residential parking permit program for 2 streets on 12 South because of the amount of people that are actually parking and creating an issue for them on the street of even being able to leave their driveways. So we just want to make sure that the parking is stayed and made available at all times for the folks that are visiting the businesses in the area versus being up in the neighborhood. So that's why we're rotating it for the 24 hours.
I just wouldn't necessarily consider this like the 12 South commercial area. This is almost closer to the Gulch, and then you kind of have to cross over to get into the highway to get there. This just...
It's still a pretty commercialized area.
Okay.
And the Gulch is currently 24/7 as of right now. So we just want to keep it also mirrored in the same proximity together.
Commissioner Woods.
And the developer was the one that wanted 12 hours, not the
Correct,
Rochelle Center.
right.
Okay.
But we wanted to make sure, because as we're seeing the landscape continue to change and we're adding commercial to everything, we wanted to make sure it stayed available for businesses and didn't end up going up into the side streets, creating a problem. Or as we are seeing people parking in bike lanes and stuff like that, we really want to keep the parking available for the parking, and that's why we're requesting that this is what our city is now becoming, because we are finding that more and more of our landscape is becoming a commercialized area, and we need to support it with parking so they're not, you know, up on the street, residential streets or creating those types of issues.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? The motion and second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed. item 6.5. Removal of designated register of deeds parking, 30-minute time limit, and replacement with new 24/7 pay parking for approximately 8 spaces on the east side of 6th Avenue South between Broadway and McGavick Street, requested by NDOT. You have the floor.
Thank you. Actually, if I could look at maybe perhaps taking 6.5 and 6.6 together, because they sort of do the same thing, a little bit different. This is Karen with the, I forgot your yes, I forgot Karen's last name, completely went over my head just a moment.
No, before you do that, I just want to, Ms. Costones, are we okay to, do we want to merge these? Do we need to have separate?
Well, I would like to speak of them together, but if you could vote separate.
That's fine.
Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Understand.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'm so sorry. Karen's with the Registers of Deeds, and this is a request that actually she brought to our office. They are moving out of the current Bridgestone Arena and moving over to Diedrich. And so the request was to take the signs down that were accommodating her guest and remove them by the arena, but over by where she's moving, that we create some parking for her guests for 30 minutes that would allow them to come in and do the business. We were looking at doing it in 2 places, and that's mainly because one of the places in the front right off of Diedrich was actually there's a fire hydrant, and we cannot give her as many spaces as we had originally thought, because we now have to block that off because of the fire hydrant, and we need to make sure that remains available for our public safety folks. And so she's also requested some in the back, which will also be ADA accessible as well. So her ADA accessibility is on the back side, which is, I think, Union? No, MLK. Yeah, MLK. So she would be using the back side, which is 3 spaces, which would be for accessibility and as well as for her guest. And again, that would have a 30-minute. So 5.5 is actually removing the old signs, and then 6.5, I'm sorry, is removing the old signs over by Bridgestone. And then 6.6 would be adding the new places for her over at her new office, which she will officially be in on May 30th. Right? Whew. That was a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. But I will let you talk now.
If you don't mind, state your name for the record.
Got all this? Oh my gosh. Thank you. We just met not that long ago, and we're best friends now.
It's amazing how quickly you become someone's friends when you're involved in parking.
Yes, and I respect the work that she does. She is doing an incredible job over at NDOT, because that's a tremendous job to keep up with everything for our city and keep us moving. Yes, the parking, and thank you, Council Lady, for helping us to pass the ordinance to move to our new location. We are very excited. It is very stressful though right now, because we are moving at lightning speed for the predators. They are king, and we want them happy. So they have just done a walkthrough through our office this past week. Could not believe that all of our cubicles and all of our shelving and books and everything have been removed and have now been moved to storage. And so this parking is incredibly important to our customers. They are accustomed to getting out of their vehicles right there on 6th Avenue and walking into the arena administrative doors right there off of 6th and Broadway. And so it is handicapped accessible there. And the reason why this parking in the front is very important is because there's a ramp that is being built inside of the doors. So it will have handicap accessibility to come in and go down the ramp. And for anybody who may have challenges, we also will have parking in the garage. So not only will we have these 2 spaces, but we will have parking spaces in the garage as well, so that we can hopefully accommodate everyone. On average, we have generally between maybe 8 and 10 people at a time. Sometimes we have more depending on the time of the month. Generally, the first of the month is the first or the last? okay, last of the month. And Attorney Jack Brown is Chief Deputy in the office, and he's here to also help answer any questions. But we just appreciate your consideration. We proactively, I went to talk in depth with Diana. See, we're doing the same thing with Diana and her staff. And so whatever we need to do to help make this a win-win for the citizens of our city, we stand ready to do that.
Great. Are there any questions from the commission? Yes, Councilwoman.
I just want to say, as somebody who has sat at my desk and waited to hear from the runner that they are in your office and ready to file something at the end of the month, a lot of times parking we think of as a convenience, but this is actually a pretty significant and important piece of our economy because closings have to happen on the day they have to happen. They often go to the very end of the day, and there are runners coming from all over this county to literally just like fly into those spots and drop off the deed and make sure it gets stamped. So that whether it's your first home or a $100 million piece of commercial property, it happens when it's supposed to happen without ending up in court. So I just want to make that plug because I know we often think, well, do you really have to be so close? Can't you just walk? Can't you just pay? But in this instance, this is a very specific and niche need for parking that is very available just for one very short visit, but that very short visit's important.
Thank you, Council Lady Quinn Evans Siegel. She has come to our rescue even before the council. We so appreciate you. I think also what people do not understand is that we are considered to be a critical infrastructure workforce by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And as a result of that, because of the critical nature of this office, and many people do not realize, is we can't close down and we have to keep operations going or it stops the city. We did not get to the luxury of working from home during the pandemic. When all of the interstates were empty, we were in the office fully staffed. And so that's very important for us to have this parking because as Council Lady has expressed, time is of essence sometimes when people are needing to get something in before we close the doors. Thank you.
I make a motion that we approve item 6.5.
Is there a second?
I second.
It has been first and second. All in favor? Sure.
How many spots are in the garage?
I believe it's 25 or 30 spots in the garage, but we have 25 staff members, so 25 of those will go to staff. So we have, I think it'll be like 4 or 5 for the public, in addition to what we would have outside.
Okay, and so and this is supposed to be a like-for-like amount of spaces, 8 spaces in the old one, 8 spaces in the new one?
Pretty much, yes.
Yes, and we would actually have more with this scenario than we currently have at Bridgestone Arena.
Well, that's what she thinks, but the tail end on Diedrich actually has a fire hydrant. So we are actually going to take that part and have to safety mark it and make it a bike and scooter corral. Because originally she was hoping, but the cost to move that fire hydrant is close to $30,000. So we cannot move the fire hydrant. So she's actually only going to end up with 3 spaces there in the front. So she was hoping for 8, but she's actually going to end up maybe 4 spaces in the front, depending on the size of the cars. She's going to end up with from about 7 spaces actually moving forward. Sorry about that. I tried.
Well, this is what we're going to do, and I'm going to put it on the record. Long term, we may be able to pay the $30,000 interdepartmental and cover the cost of the move of the fire hydrant.
Then we can talk about that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or discussion? Concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little concerned. This doesn't necessarily seem like something that other departments get as well. And we're trying to have turnover on these spaces, and there's different ways to accomplish that. Understanding that there is a need for it, but it does sound like a lot of this may or may not be driven more by real estate and some of lawyers that can show up, and, you know, paying for it isn't necessarily the barrier. It's just the time commitment to get out of the car, take a picture of a QR code, and then get back in. Those are kind of my hesitations on this. And just if there is other examples of city departments that have no meters outside of their place specifically for them during the day, that would be helpful information.
So Commissioner, we do have other departments that we provide parking for, especially around the courthouse area. We do provide the opportunity for them to park on the street, especially because they go in and out of the building so much versus pulling into the garage. So this is a practice that we have been doing. We are trying to move away from it, that there is not much. The one thing I do want to share is that during the day, it is going to be available for her office, but in the evening, it'll be available for regular parking. So we do have a lot of commercial business that happens more so in the evening than so in the day. So we really didn't feel like this was going to have a major effect on our parking program at the moment. But if it changes, there's always that opportunity to have the conversation moving forward. But we do it, but you're absolutely correct. We are trying to move to where the spaces are made available for the short-term parking. But we did feel like this was going to be accommodating her business in that manner. That's why it's going to be a 30-minute only. So the most they can sit there is 30 minutes. And she felt that was how long that they needed to actually accommodate the business that they would need to. So that's the most they're going to be able to sit there during that time. And then after 4:30, it actually becomes paid parking.
Yeah, I mean, that area at night seems to be one of those places that's a little bit more empty than some of the other parts of the city. So maybe that's just something we could keep an eye on moving forward to see if that price is the right price for that area. And we can consider something else in that. Yeah, I mean, if this is something we do, we're going to continue with it. I'm fine with it.
Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is passed, and while we're there, we'll go to 6.6, authorization for designated register of deeds parking, 30-minute time limit, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, with paid parking during all other times. Do we have a motion?
Move to.
It's been motioned and second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? Any opposed? It is passed. I will say, I've personally gone down to your office and filed on a transaction, and I was shocked when I saw that it was a Bridgestone, and it was a little tough to get down there and park with Broadway and the things that are around there. I was able to get in and out within 10 to 12 minutes, so it was very functional. Glad to see that, where the office is in more of a business area and not in a through traffic for tourism. So I appreciate the diligence in making that move. I know moving is tough, but good for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, esteemed members of the commission.
Thank you, Register Johnson. Who's going to keep us informed now about sports and what's going on with the Predators and the backdoor?
We're going to try to keep, since we're going out on good terms and the Predators are happy, we think we're going to still have that connection there.
And thank you, too, for your article in the Tennessean about
you.
housing. I complimented you, too, earlier.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Item 6.7, authorization for new paid parking effective 24/7 on east side of 9th Avenue South from Division to Cleve Street, west side of 9th Avenue South from Division Street to Old Division Street, on the south side of Cleve Street from 9th Avenue South to Overton Street, and on the south side of Old Division Street from 9th Avenue South to 8th Avenue South, requested by NDOT. Please state your name for the record. You're free to speak.
Good afternoon, Emmanuel Matias, Curb Manager with NDOT.
Marcus Jackson, Transportation Superintendent, NDOT.
Yeah, just briefly, for this area, we actually already had some parking present, and we just looked at the vision of the segment and realized that there are some opportunities for paid parking in this area that already perhaps, for example, were on one side but not on the other. So we just wanted to make sure that there's consistency there. And so for example, the Gleave Street already has parking on the north side. This would just add parking on the other side. 9th Avenue South also has parking already present, so this would just add it to the other side. The Old Division Street has actually no parking on one of the sides and would add parking to the other side. And this area has been under development for some time, and now that it's become to completion, it's possible for us to continue what we wanted to do in the first place, just didn't have a chance to because of the construction. We are expecting for this to bring a certain amount of $200,000 to $300,000 a year extra revenue for NDOT, which would then be used to help elsewhere. We do recommend for approval of these parking areas, and just to state, this is around 100 feet total. I'm sorry, 1,000 feet total for all the areas, but there's a lot of entries, fire hydrants, some loading zones. So this wouldn't be consecutive. It would be just so that in between those areas that allow for the parking to be consistent and obviously we measured out the intersections as well to make sure there's no safety hazard. Everything is based on the standards that we uphold to, and the engineering team was there as well with us to establish this. So we are seeking for approval from you for the approval of this of these areas today.
Thank you for that. Any other comment? Any questions from the commission?
Just to be more clarified, is all the other areas that are not highlighted in the area in this photo have paid parking on the street? So this is what I call infill paid parking?
Yeah, on this map specifically, so the arrow on the 9th Avenue South on the opposite side is already paid parking. The yellow arrow on Old Division Street, actually, it's supposed to be down on the opposing side because the side where it's currently displayed is no parking. So there's no parking on one side and will be parking on the other side. And then 9th Avenue South towards Division Street, there's currently no parking there. And this would become paid parking. But there's a lot of curb space there that is utilized with vehicles, and we have to put paid meters there. Also on Gleave Street, past 9th Avenue, there's already, in front of Rudy's Jazz Room, there's already paid parking there as well. And then the other side of the Gleave Street, towards the Peg Leg, there is already parking as well. So this would be just on the opposite side as well. So it's just cleaning up the street so it's consistent.
It's making sure that all this area is paid. There's
Yes,
not
sir.
a place for someone to park free.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner?
You said there was a lot of potential conflicts that are there. Are those going to be signed out or marked clearly, or is that going to add too much signage in the area? So like driveways and the hydrants, do those get blocked off from where you can and can't park?
Yeah, so there's appropriate signage that would indicate where the parking starts, when the parking ends, and that would be pointed by arrows. What I was just trying to say is that it's not like a stretch of curb that would be, just parking along the way on 9th Avenue. There actually is two entrances to the Rudy's Jazz House and some other parking options there. So we want to make sure, we just put the parking in between the curb where there's no entrances and whatnot, so it doesn't impede the right-of-way and also the current parking options that there are at this place.
Yeah, just make it as clear as possible for the
Yeah,
public.
apologize if I misspoke, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I make a motion to approve.
Before, I have one more question.
Okay.
Just for clarification and, for the record, that is although those roads are two-way streets, correct? And it currently has paid parking on both sides? Or this motion
this
will
would-
allow,
Correct. Yes,
we
sir.
have verified the width of that street to
Correct.
ensure
Yes, sir.
that traffic can still flow
Yes, sir.
on those streets.
That's why, for example, the old Division Street remains the way it is, to where one side is no parking at all and the other side will be paid.
And,
So yes,
and
it's-
Gleaves, we checked as well.
Correct.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second? Second. It's been first and second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
We have any opposed? It is passed. Thank you for that input. Move on to item 7.0, unfinished business. 7.1 is the valet fee policy approval. There is someone here that signed up. Excuse me, I can't. Sorry, excuse me. I'm gonna wait. I don't think I have anything to say. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Would you like to come up and provide any public comment to the item? Great. Okay, Mr. Mateus.
Thank you. Full transparency, this was brought forward to you in the past and it got deferred. So I'm going to just go through history a little bit so that those board members that weren't here in the past are up to speed. So in December of 2019, questions arose as to the interpretation and implementation of the Metro Code Section 124180 for valet parking operation and fees. The issue was deferred during the worst of the global pandemic in 2020. And as a result, in 2021, the Traffic and Parking Commission adopted and approved revision of the Metro Valet fee policy to address the stakeholder concern. The code at that time was interpreted in a sense that if parking meters were taken out of service to accommodate a valet stand as part of the valet operation, the permit recipient would, for the valet stand location, pay a $50 application fee plus cost of revenue lost for the meters being taken out of service. This is for what happened in the past. Some of the businesses might have requested removal of parking meters for other reasons than valet, which might have been loading zones or any other reasons. And then when it came to if they would apply for the valet application and to have a valet at that location, the meters were no longer there, so the fee would not apply. So that created loss of curb space for NDOT and also financial loss to Metro and an unjustified windfall for the valet operator in that it didn't adequately account for the curbside value and the cost of it for the use of public right-of-way. So upon the recommendation of the Traffic and Parking Commission here in March, I believe, NDOT submitted legislation to Metro Council to amend Metro Code Section 124180C to authorize NDOT to more broadly charge and collect application fees and separate fees for the use of public right-of-way. And this is in connection with valet parking permits. The intent of this ordinance was for Metro to recoup the opportunity for the cost introduced by the curbside valet operations and help fairly structure the demand curb space. The valet fees that we present here today should help structure these principles behind good curb management and result impact on the businesses and as well as transportation. Can we pull up the policy, please? So the current revision that we are presenting here today does change a few things from the previous one that was implemented in 2021, but this is really just to streamline and make it a transparent policy for all the operators in the city of Nashville. We have 4 configurations that fall within the valet operator structure. 3 of these, well, all 4 of them were previously in the valet fee policy that was approved in 2021, so they are not new. One of them after the ordinance was passed on April 16 is actually configuration 3, and that proposed to be charged for the cost of the use of the right-of-way as opposed to loss of the revenue as it was previously mentioned. This configuration occurs where parking would not have been previously allowed in the right-of-way, or in the cases that I mentioned before where the meters would be removed, in which the cutout is constructed prior to the cutout being constructed, but once the cutout is constructed, is fully located within the public right-of-way and creates additional space within the public right-of-way where on-street parking would now be possible. Thus, there is a loss of opportunity cost for Metro in the spaces in the cutout and that are used exclusively for valet stands. And the configuration 3,
It's page 4.
it's page 4. So this really just reenacts what the ordinance already approved. And following that, we try to make the valet fee policy really easy to understand and something that can reoccur on an annual basis with valet operators, with easily understanding what the fee structure is, easily understanding what removing a space would yield, what adding a space would yield, because the previous calculation from 2021 had a flat 60-hour hour of operations, regardless of the business operating more or less. This one really caters to real-time use of the curb space based on the real usage. And as you will see later, also only charges based on how many hours the valet businesses operate. As it was mentioned previously in March, we are, and I can also showcase this in some examples if you'd like. The current calculation will yield in a reduction of the valet fees for most of the operators. And we feel that what we're proposing here today is fair in terms of what other cities are doing in the curb space usage, in some of the implementations of the fees and installation guidelines that we are setting forward today as well. In that previously, for example, signage fees, although they were pursuant to Metropolitan Code Section 124180, permit holders were responsible for reimbursing. That never occurred. So we are allowing for the calculation in itself to be more transparent, but we are also trying to put policies in place that will be stricter in a sense that everybody has to do what they have to do. So, for example, one of the new proposed fees that we have here is that there has to be an installation fee for the signage, and that's just something that we covered earlier about other things. Is if you have a valet operation, it has to be Metro approved, MUTCD signage. There is cost associated with it. If you want to operate within the curb space, whatever amount of spaces those are, we have to be able to identify that your valet operation starts here and the valet operation stops there. For that, we need to have somebody go out there, install, there's signage fees and all cost recoup. So this is all us just recouping the cost for being able to install the signs to make sure the valet operation is within the parameters. This was already in the code, but the cost for this was never collected. This would be added to the valet fee policy. It is estimated to be, it's not estimated, it's an exact $205.35. This would be for every new application, every new installation of signage. So everybody who is currently existing within the valet parameters and they don't change would not have this fee at all. If somebody were to remove their spaces from like 6 to 4 and we need to move the signage, this fee would apply. If somebody would apply tomorrow for a new valet operation, this would also apply. A second part would be, and I'm going to be as polite as possible, but we had some troubles trying to have some of the valet operators submitting the applications on time, and it's been a bit of a struggle. So the following penalties or late submission fees were implemented as well. And I want to stress that this only applies for anybody who is not within compliance. Which means that by October 15 of each year, every renewal is supposed to be submitted. So if somebody, let's say today is May, if somebody's operating today since last year, they have until, ideally, until October 15 of each year to submit their application for the following year, which is ample of time. Following the 15th of October, and this is, by the way, because we would like to invoice the valet fee cost by November. So by October 15th, all the applications should be submitted, and if they are not submitted, we have a 5-day grace period. After the five grace period, there will be a $50 additional fee that would accrue up until November 15th, at which point we would bring a notice in front of you for revocation of the valet license. And this is, again, to just maintain order, to make sure there is no illegal operations there. Everybody needs to have a permit. We're trying to streamline and organize the operators in a sense that, you know, everybody knows where they are, everybody has the application, nothing illegal is going on, and everybody's doing by the book as they're supposed to. The following, excuse me for a second. The following addition to the policy is the penalties for operating without a permit, which is a big one. We obviously want to make sure that everybody's in compliance and don't try to break the rules or operate illegally, because that affects everybody. One of the penalties for operating without a permit is something that we would like to implement today as well as part of this fee policy. And that will be such that if a business is found, you could read that if you'd like, but I'll summarize it if you don't mind. In short, what it states is that if a business is operating without a permit, they will be liable for back payment of all the funds, the cost of the valet operation since the time they were found operating illegally from. So if somebody operates from July and they were found operating in October, from July to October, they have to back pay. On top of that, there will be a $50 additional fee per day for operating without a permit. And this is, again, I want to stress, this is, again, only for those operations that are doing something willfully, illegally. Everybody who's in compliance will not be subject to these fees. And yes, sir.
Just make sure we're clear. So who applies for the valet stand? So let's say we have Restaurant X. Is it Restaurant X or is it valet parking operator A?
It depends on their agreement. It depends on what kind of agreement they have. It's both.
So that was going to be my next, add on to that. Is it one or the other, and does the business have to have an agreement with an operator in order to apply? Like, how are we verifying that?
So we have documents that they have to submit. And so if somebody is operating on behalf of somebody, we know that. There's also an insurance form there's also an insurance that they have to submit. And so they have to be insured as well.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
So the business has to apply with an operator accompanying that license, or the operator
It's
can
either
apply.
or, because sometimes they are just a pass-through, sometimes they are,
Yeah.
you know, some of the larger operators like LAS and PMC,
Yeah.
they have, you know, contracts and management deals where they.
So they're presenting that when
Correct.
they, okay.
Yeah, typically the valet operator will apply on behalf of the business. The business is 99.9% of the time paying for the valet fees, but it's having the valet operator submit it for them.
Okay. Because my question is, who takes the penalty? Is it the, valet operator A, or is it?
The permit holder.
Whoever has the permit, because they are the ones who are technically
So, just trying to understand the penalty.
Yes, sir.
So if it's permit operator A and they operate 10 stands in town and they got one that they're in penalty on, does the not being able to submit an application apply to all of the things they hold, or just the one
Just
at
that one.
location?
Just that one.
All right, I just want to.
Correct.
I just want to make sure
Correct.
we're.
And to be fair, it could be, and this happened in the past when somebody forgets or, you know, somebody calls out sick or was on vacation. We are really understanding of this, and I want to also stress the fact that we're in touch with the Valley operators, sending out reminder emails after the reminder emails, meet with them in person. So this is not like, you know, the date of October 15 comes and now that's it. Like there's a lot of communication back and
So
forth.
the penalty is really going to focus on the location.
Correct.
In essence. that
It's per
seems to be
location,
it.
per violator, correct.
That's
And
what I
anybody who
wanted to
stays in compliance is completely out of the picture when it comes to this.
Before, you got a question on that topic?
Yeah, I have some penalty questions.
Go ahead. We'll
Sorry.
talk penalty. I want to allow you to finish and then just before we get too far off
I can
track,
ask
but-
them
No,
at
go
the
ahead.
end if you want.
We'll
Okay.
go ahead.
I've been known to save all my questions and ask them at the end, and nobody likes that, really. It's a lot, sorry. So I guess, sort of talking about penalties, I think there are two things that I'm thinking of. One, we're already off for this year, so nobody's paid for this year, right, because we've been waiting on this policy. And so is there a temporary policy that's going to be put into place, like we're going to notify you once this passes and you have X number of days, or how is it anticipated to work for 2024 in particular?
So we actually have been in touch. We had a community meeting with the Valley operators already in February. We sent out emails in March. We sent out emails again in April. So we actually have a list of the operators or the operations that we don't have the applications for. Once this gets approved, we had about maybe a month-ish before the invoices go out. So we'll use that time to make sure that we are able to, you know, receive all the applications that haven't been submitted yet. But most of them have been.
Okay, and so then, like, once they get it, they'll have 30 days or something like that to pay?
Is it 30 days? Yes, it's 30 days.
30 days, okay. And then I know we run into all kinds of issues on, like, Airbnbs are a great example when it comes to proving how long have you been in operation? Does this person really live here? Like, all those sort of evidence-based issues around proving operating without a license, and they get really, really tricky really quickly, especially I would imagine with valet. Like, are they operating illegally 4 hours a day or 12 hours a day or 24/7? And how does sort of NDOT envision that enforcement process going, and sort of what is the level, and maybe this gets into a little bit of a legal question, like what is the level of evidence necessary to prove? Is it preponderance? Like, what are we looking at having to prove and establish to?
That's an excellent question. And the answer to that is that we attack it multiple ways. So first of all is signage, which should reflect exactly what the application states. And then also the application itself states what the hours of operations are. So we have enforcement 24/7 at this point. And we also, and it's not like there's 700 of them, it's 49, I believe, at this point. So we have the means and capabilities to also cross-check. But the application fee is the first one. And then the signage would be the second, and then enforcement would be third. And I think Ms. Diana will add something to it.
If I may, Diana Alarcon, from the enforcement will start the day we notice that they are actually out there in behaving in that fashion. So we will actually mark that as the date, send them a warning notice that we don't have them on file, and start them. And usually at that point, they come in and start the process. So then we make them aware of the policy. They'll then at that point be aware also of the late penalty that will be paid because they were actually out there using the meters, but we start from the date in which we actually notice it. So and it's marked, and typically a citation is given because they're operating in the right of way without a permit. So that's going to be the starting count.
Is there a way, I guess I'm just thinking, like, most people are probably in good faith and they're just not thinking and they'll come in. But for those that aren't, and there will always be those, is there a way in the policy to include something that says, like, it is assumed you are operating 24/7 or 12 hours a day or whatever it is if you're found in violation? Or do we actually have to prove the number of hours they're operating, since this is an hour-dependent formula?
I would have to say, if it's a hotel, it's pretty much 24/7. If it's a restaurant, it's pretty much based on the hours of operation. So we would investigate the hours of operation on a hotel concern. So if they're serving lunch, we would see if there's actually a lunchtime valet sign. They're usually out together, so they give themselves away. And then if there's a dinner, we would actually use that as a sign of what they're operating and starting that day. And then a valet, I'm pretty comfortable that valets usually operate 24/7 on a hotel business.
Thanks.
If I could add just one more thing real quick about when this will start, we are actually looking to start it in the next round, not in the 2024, but in the 2025. But we will be giving notice to those folks and that telling them they have to be in 30 days to get everything up to date this year. Otherwise, we will actually consider them as a revoked license, and we would remove them from having any valets. So that's really the direction we would go in if they're not brought up to date in 2024, just as an FYI. Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So I'm still a little confused. So do we issue the valet licenses?
Yes.
Does this commission approve valet licenses?
Yes, so there's two different kinds of, I guess, permits, for lack of a better word, but when we talk about the license, we are generally talking about the right of an operator, a business, to provide valet services at all. When we talk about the permit, we're usually talking about the location permit, the specific permit to have that stand in that location.
So to answer your question, Commissioner, you are actually approving the location. So when we come to y'all and ask for a valet operations, we've worked with the valet companies on times in operation and where and everything. And so you're actually approving for us the location in which they are that they're utilizing. And then we issue a license based on that approval from this commission.
Isn't it, it's a permit at a location, a license?
Yes, it's a permitted location, and then we give them a license to use that location. Well, the license, it's a run a business, so it's about the same thing.
But I guess I don't understand that. Isn't a license, your license expands as you get more locations?
So this one valet operator license, each operator fills out a valet operator license application, and that's one time for all locations. Then you have a valet application, which after it gets approved, we issue a permit to then operate at that said location, and then the signs go up. So you have your operator license that goes for the entire year, and you also have your permit that gets issued through us as well, and then the signs go up.
By location.
By location.
Per location, correct.
And I guess I don't think I remember ever seeing a license come before this commission. It's always permit locations.
And the license, you all verify the license with each individual entity.
Yes, correct. We don't.
And then once that entity has a valet license, and they're able to then be an operator to pull a permit
Correct.
for a business or entity. So you can't pull a permit at a location without being a licensed operator.
Correct.
So that, yeah.
Does that make?
So if I wanted to start
Yeah.
a business tomorrow, I would apply for a license and it would become here.
No.
A license goes through the finance department.
Right.
So a license it's through the clerk's office, right? Who issues the business license?
Or are you talking about a valet operator
A
license?
valet operator license.
No, the business license goes through the county clerk's
Thank you.
office. Hang on just one second, let me pull up the right code section. Or Erica, do you already have it? Erica's gonna speak to it.
It goes through finance. They issue the permit here.
Well, I was just reading it. So I'm going to read the definitions of license pursuant to section 12.41.020, which is the valet services section of the Metro Code. License means the license issued by the Department of Public Works, which is now NDOT, allowing a person to engage in the business of valet parking within the area of the metropolitan government. The permit, or quote, valet parking permit, end quote, means the permit issued by the Department of Public Works, now NDOT, allowing a valet parking operator to conduct a valet service at a specific location. But I do think, Commissioner, Chapter 12.41.020, where it says license required issuance conditions, subsection A reads, effective from and after September 1, 2011, no person shall engage in the business of valet parking within the area of the metropolitan government without first obtaining and keeping in force a license from the commission as a valet operator, provided that no such license shall be required for persons conducting or offering valet parking services solely on private property without involving the use of any public right-of-way. And then any person desiring to, this is subsection B, any person desiring to engage in the business of providing valet services within the area of the metropolitan government shall make application to the department, that would be NDOT, which application shall be upon forms to be provided by the department. So it looks like the license.
So going further down from there, Erica, it does say that the commission, in section D, if the commission finds upon examination that the applicant is capable, willing, and qualified to provide valet services. So it is the commission that is supposed to issue the licenses. What I assume is that the original licenses were issued some years ago, and that we have a consistent number of players in this industry.
That's
and
exactly.
that basically what the commission is doing is just doing annual renewals for existing.
This commission?
Yes.
Okay. We do licensing.
Yes, but we haven't brought any new operators before y'all in many years. So what we're bringing before you is locations, but the folks that are currently licensed were licensed a long time ago. We haven't had any new companies come forth, and
But they have been,
not since I've been here.
so renewals don't come here either. Then.
So we typically, they have the ability to renew annually. Erica, can you check on that? It's an automatic renewal, I believe, unless they are not following the rules and regulations.
So the question was, does renewals come before this commission? How does renewals?
Section F says a valet operator license issued by the department pursuant to this section shall be valid for a period of 1 year at an annual fee of $100. Such a license shall not be sold, assigned, or otherwise transferred without approval of the commission, and shall expire immediately upon the licensee terminating the valet service or upon revocation by the commission. So if y'all took disciplinary action and revoked their permit. Renewal shall be on an annual basis and shall be granted after confirmation of the extension of all applicable permit requirements established in this chapter and the payment of applicable fees. So basically, as long as they are just renewing the same permit holder over and over and over again, they're just verifying the confirmation of the extension of all applicable permit requirements. That doesn't make sense. The confirmation of the compliance with all applicable permit requirements, I assume, and the payment of the applicable fees. So I think it's just kind of being re-upped from year to year. But presumably at some point in the past, each license holder must have gone before this body to establish that they did indeed under D have the capability, willingness, and qualifications to provide valet service.
And on top of that, if a business merged, if a business started a new one, since whenever it's been there, that would then end that license, and they would then have to come before us.
That's correct. It says such license shall not be sold, assigned, or otherwise transferred without the approval of the commission.
And I expect, knowing some of the operators that are out there, that there's likely changes in their operating structure over the past decade or so, that they may want to verify that they have active and legal licenses.
Correct. And I can recall one from this year, but the transfer also happens between the well-established ones already. So if I can just give an example, for example, you would have something that Metropolis has that is now becoming PMC. So they already have the license. They would still need to apply for the location, but they're already established as a player. So you're correct. It's just since I've been here for 7 months, I don't recall this happening.
So for example, SP Plus is currently going through being acquired by Metropolis. SP Plus has some valet areas with us. They would have to come in and they would have to reapply under Metropolis because SP Plus, we would assume, would get absolved. But Metropolis already has a license though. But they would have to do the new location because SP Plus no longer exists.
Hold tight. We 100% respect your comment. I think the main thing here is the valet policy, right?
Right.
And I think there's some clarification that's needed around the licensing process with regards to existing licenses, old licenses. I think, if we've been going on for decades and there's not been any other competition or things that have happened or where there've been any renewals, I think that's something that needs to be looked at. And then if there's a merger or somebody coming together, like I feel like that needs to be re-looked at. And I'm just spitballing here. It's just things that come up. So finish your comment if you don't mind. But I think on top of this policy, and I know this thing's been cooking for a long time. I guess, is this licensing piece separate from the policy, or is this something that needs to be included? I feel like the licensing, for example, is a separate bucket that we need to bring in as a part of the process there, against or separate from the valet fee policy.
So that was going to be my clarifying question to get to, is the way that this is written is then if somebody is operating without a permit, it also says license in this section. So would we then have the ability, the penalties for operating without a permit? So it reads to me that if somebody is operating poorly, they do it once, okay, you pay some penalties, and it's just on that location. They do it twice, they do it a third time. That comes before us, then we would have the authority, under how I read this, to say, actually, your license is now gone.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So there are different provisions later in the ordinance about disciplinary action, and when that is merited, they are entitled to have a hearing before a suspension, revocation, or probation, and after a refusal to renew a license or a permit. So basically, that would have to come before the commission, and the commission can basically give them a little due process hearing on whether whichever action is going to be taken, whether it's suspension, revocation, or failure to renew, will be, or probation, or will be put in place. So that is going to be like a factual hearing on a case-by-case basis when that occurs. So yes, like if you
if there's a penalty, then we have the right to revoke the license as a whole.
If you are a bad actor, basically, if you are committing violations of Chapter 1241 in terms of your permits, then I think that could be taken into consideration in terms of whether you are ready, willing, and able to operate a valet stand in terms of your license. But basically, we would have to notify them that there was going to be a specific hearing at a specific commission meeting And there would be, a disciplinary hearing at which you all would decide whether there was a violation, and if there was, whether that merits a suspension, a revocation, a failure to renew a permit, or probation.
So, go ahead, Mr. Mateus.
Go ahead. This started almost 5 years ago. We were trying to assess the curbside because we had a series of things about valet, paid parking, and permit parking, and the determination was made that we didn't have a lot of data, and that secondly, it was clear that the valet was undervalued relative to the value of the curbside. And so, I'm going to say it this way. I took as a given that we following the process for the licensee. The issue really was once you got a permit, were we valuing that permit appropriately, and did we have a policy in place to try to value that permit? That's what I kind of see what we're trying to do today is to get valuation for that. That's my perspective. And I think the conversations about licenses are very, very good and very helpful. And that's what happens with New Perspective, which is good. But I think that's a separate, conversation from, I think, what we're trying to do today. It seems like we need to make sure that we are following the charter and the ordinance about how we do licenses. But what's really important about the conversation today is trying to get a policy in place that, to me, it's adequately reflects the value of the curbside, that's fair to the operators, and helps us to move forward as a city. So thank you for letting me go
I greatly
back.
appreciate that. I think, I live in the orbit of keeping the main thing at times, and the valet fee policy with relation to the right-of-way, I feel like is something that we're to a point that has been collaborated and understand with the community and with you and with staff, just on my short time on the commission, that we can keep a focus and provide or at least some sort of comment or motion with regards to this. I would challenge staff that on next month's agenda to talk around the licensing and just let the commission better understand, one, what's in place, two, maybe a list of the current permit holder or license holders. Doesn't sound like it's a long list. And then just understanding what our legal, what our provisions and things are, to just educate the group, because it sounds like that's something in the near future that could come before us and we would be prepared. Yes.
So just to clarify, the permit does reference licenses in a couple places, I think in the penalties section, for example. And the penalty that's provided for the $50 per day, that is actually the standard penalty amount that we would have for any Metro Code section violation. And that we're allowed to charge under the Tennessee Constitution without having a jury of your peers. So, so that, with or without this section in this policy, that would be the applicable penalty amount regardless. But we are just spelling it out for transparency. Mostly, you're correct that this policy addresses aspects that will only be relevant to a permit location. Like the four configurations are only going to be relevant to a permit configuration, not an operator's license. The formula for calculating the lost revenue is only going to be pertinent to the permit location and not the operator's license.
Thank you for that. Did you have a comment as well? Are you good? Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
With that, I would just like to circle back on what is your all's recommendation that you would seek from this commission for item 7.2 or 7.1, I'm sorry.
We would seek for the new valet fee policy that includes the new calculation to be approved today so that we can go ahead and start our process on the back end.
Ms. Costones?
I just wanted to add to that, if you could approve it. So the code section provides for approval by the commission, but also approval by the director of finance. And so we would say that we do need you all's approval, so we would ask for a motion to approve, but we would also need that to be contingent upon the finance director also providing his approval.
Okay.
Of just the fee amount is the only part he has to.
So just for clarification, we are planning to bring the licensing piece before us next month's meeting.
We will bring to this commission at the next meeting a list of all of the licensees, when they were actually licensed, and then from there, you can make a decision that if you would like for us to go ahead and renew everyone again, or bring that back, we can have that discussion, but we'll prep all of that for your next meeting.
I think it's fair just to bring it before the commission next month, just for us to digest.
No problem.
And then have a discussion around next steps, and then the next meeting talk
I agree.
through some of that, just to familiarize ourselves with that. So for this item, is there any other questions or discussions related to the fee policy? You do, go ahead.
Yeah, we didn't really get to the fee part of it just yet.
Feel free if you have questions.
Well, so the piece that I still wanted to get some clarity on, and I'm not sure if that's been spoken to yet, this kind of sets up two structures where there's a higher fee in the CBD, and then there is a lower fee in the non-CBD. The document that I'm looking at shows two attachments that have pretty clear boundaries drawn. And my understanding, and then there's attachment B, which is applicable streets. My understanding was these fees, there'd be the CBD fee within the CBD, and that's a set area. And then it would be the same amount of fees outside of that, regardless of what color is on this map. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's either or. So the calculation is your operation is either within the confines of CBD, and then there's a rate structure for that, or you're outside of CBD and there's a rate structure for that.
Okay, so
it's either or.
So my neighborhood's not in that green, but there's valet operators there.
Okay.
Do they then get hit with the valet fee as described in the TNCB?
So anything that is not downtown core is non-CBD. That's our understanding currently.
So technically, yes, this is reflecting where we have record of valet operatings, but if somebody wanted to operate more, everything in the blue is considered, your central business district, everything out that, no matter how far out throughout the whole county. The green could expand through the whole county except for where the central business district is and become the non-central business district.
So is this attachment necessary? This would confuse me.
Well, this is currently where we have valet operations, so we do not have in valet operations. You're telling me there is, but I'm saying we haven't found that yet, of where other people are operating outside this. This is what we have on record. So if you have someone in your neighborhood who's operating a valet, they probably haven't gone through the process correctly.
So we don't have any record in East Nashville?
Or Green Hills?
Not on the right of way.
In the right of way.
Not in the right of way. If they're on private property, we don't include it because that's private property. But if they're operating within the right of way, they need to come through this commission and ask for permission, period, end of story. So if you know of someone who's operating in the right of way, please send it our way. We will go and verify and check it all out and get them in the process.
Can I ask, Andrew, you've been in Wedgwood, Houston, that area that is pretty serious, that has a valet stand, does it not?
There was a valet operation that was approved by this commission, I think about 2 years ago on Houston.
Correct.
But then, did we pull that one back or is it still operating?
That's still operating.
Then we need to expand this to cover that.
Correct. I see.
Because this should reflect every single valet operator that's been approved by this commission.
So the question is, how is the fee applied in non-CBD areas, right?
Yeah, and that's, it's two parts, so that this map is there, and then
That's
there's the
right.
streets that are listed as
That's
well.
right.
So if that street isn't listed,
So, yeah, so we actually had an addition to address exactly what you just mentioned a second ago and just now. There is a small statement on the bottom of the very last page of the policy that states that subject to change as parking meters are added or removed. And also, these are applicable streets, but these are subject to change.
and I thought that intent of the policy was not necessarily where meters are, but just where valet is being operated.
Correct.
Correct.
That's correct. You're absolutely correct. I'm not sure if Exhibit B needs to exist anymore. I think Exhibit B was put more into place to support Section 3 of the actual ordinance that y'all approved and removed. So to me, actually, we need to update the map correctly on the prior one. And then I feel like at this point that Exhibit B actually could be removed because I don't feel like that really plays any significance after we removed Section 3 out of the actual ordinance, because this actually played to that. So this should have been removed with it.
And then in that same,
And that was the question you raised to me on Friday.
right,
So I think that this should be reflecting what we have on file. So if we're missing Wedgewood, we should go back and make sure that every single operation that's been approved, valet operation that's been approved by this commission is highlighted on this map. And this could grow. If the central business district grows, then you would see more blue. But right now, what's in the green is the non-central business district. And so we need to just correct this, and that's just an expansion of the green into the area where it's approved. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a place in the hub where the half dozen places that we have all just now realized don't have permits, like, do they go in the hub?
That would be awesome.
Is that what you would recommend?
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly, because we actually put that to a work order, and we would file everything against that work order. So that would be the best way to start.
Yeah, okay.
We may be going backwards with this question, but what is define the central business? How is that defined?
The central business district is actually defined based on code.
Yeah, there is a whole chapter in the code that talks about the central business district and the geographic boundaries surrounding it. It's an area where the businesses located within that district actually pay an additional assessment for slightly greater kind of amenities that are provided to the public within that area. The downtown partnership is primarily responsible for doing that. So that is very much a specific term of art in the code, Metro Code, and to expand it would require legislative action by council.
clarification on that one. There's the downtown central business district. Does that include the areas in like the Gulch Improvement District?
So that is a separate one,
Separate as in it layers on top? Or
as it
it's-
is not part of the central business improvement district. The Gulch Business Improvement District is a separate.
It's actually has its own.
And so this map is then incorrect of what the central business
Well,
district
they follow the
is.
same rules of the central business district.
That may
so-
need to be clarified, because
Yeah.
that is a separate and
Okay.
separate.
I had a question about the fee. Is if a operator is in operation for 6 months, they decide they don't want the permit anymore, and then we go back to paid parking, but they paid for the full year in advance, do they get the rest? Do they get refunded the difference since we're going back and there's not lost revenue for the entire year?
Wow, we've never had that happen, so,
The permits are annual.
yeah.
So by that standard, we shouldn't, but it's case by case, I would say. I
Yeah.
don't think it happened in a while, but the permits are always annual.
Okay. And what is the, like, lost revenue for the curbside for a year? And how does that relate to
So
how
that-
the calculation works.
That's what the calculation works. So the CBD would be, we can go into the formula, because
Is
that
it
would
the
help.
is that the entire loss, is that how we're calculating the entire lost revenue of the curb space, or is that?
So we're not really using loss of revenue, we're using curb space usage, and that is identified by the number of spaces, and that what the formula would also showcase is the number of spaces per that operation, whether it's within the CBD or non-CBD area, and then what are the hours of operations, and then the utilization rate. So it's hard for me to answer the question because that is specific to how many valet spots you would have for your location. I can give you an example though. If there is a location that is within CBD and has 3 spaces, it's around $8,000. If it's, let me see another example. If it's 8 spaces, it's 12,000. So it really depends on where you are and how many spaces you have.
Did we come up with a estimate of what it was this year and then what it's going to look like next year?
Yes.
What is that?
So the variance would be for last year, if we were to use the same amount, the same formula that we had approved in 2021, the revenue would be around 572 if everybody would apply this year with the previous rates, 572,000. With the current rate, it would be 445,000. So the variance is about around 120. This is across the board for everybody.
So do we need to revise the motion that I think has been made and is on the table to include updating Exhibit A, or with Exhibit A updated as
Removing
discussed?
I just wanted to point out, and this is on me, I'm a visual person, so this wasn't really supposed to be a representation of where every single valley operation is, because some of them are so out that the picture would just become so small. This is really just to represent what CBD is, and then everything outside of CBD is not CBD. So I just didn't look at it correctly, but.
I can respect that. We just,
We'll revise that for sure. This
Yeah.
is on me, I apologize.
No, you're fine. I think the thing about this, if somebody references 5 years from now and there's some, somebody contesting it, they're gonna pull this up and say, well, this is attachment, A, and then attachment A says green is the non-CBD, and, I think we all know that there's some, valet operators outside of that green. But totally appreciate your perspective on making it visual. I think with regards to the motion, I would like to ask staff, are we comfortable with pushing this through with these amendments if we were to entertain an motion? I say amendments to these provisions.
Yes, sir, I am comfortable. I would like to, if I could rephrase what I would consider a motion for consideration by the commission, just so that we get everything in, including what was discussed, just so it's all on record. But before I do that, I just want to make sure there's no additional questions.
Absolutely. Question.
Yeah. So from trying to figure out some clarity on this, removing the attachments, I think it would probably make sense, instead of saying CBD, make sure that it aligns with what's in the code. So if it's Central Business Improvement District, that should be what's listed in here. So if there's any sort of changes that we have to go through and find in that, we can scratch those out. Or if we need to include the Gulch, which I think we want it to.
Well, we did define it up here that the CBD core area is downtown Gulch and Sobro. So we have defined it correctly.
But it says ...
Huh?
It says ...
And that's where also that next line
Yeah,
has
because it's with-
Midtown, Edge Hill, Hillsborough, Music Row, which then is not necessarily what we need.
Correct.
So that would have to come
So I think what I would like to do is say that this is our calculation, and that I would actually, you know what? I do want to get this approved, and we need to, because we're coming to the end of the year and we want to go ahead and file everything. But I really want to come up with a better way of explaining, because it's not necessarily the central business district. It's what we've defined in parking as our central business district, and it's based on the commercial area. So in the map that's y'all saw, this blue area, the inner circle, is very commercialized. And most of the commercialization in this area actually operates around the clock. As where we find out in this area, in the Midtown area, a lot of the operation actually only lasts till midnight. That's why there's a difference in the rate. Because we're calculating this rate based on 24 hours of operations, as outside, we're basing that rate on operations to midnight, because that's been the normal operational hours. So we do have two different commercial areas that are operating, and that's why we kind of have it broken out. So we've just, as in parking, they have always identified this as the central business district for parking and the non-central business district for parking. Not necessarily 100% in line with how it's defined in code, and I think we've missed that in this overall description. So I think I have to ask if we could have this deferred for one more meeting. I think we need to go back and clean that up. We also need to clean up Exhibit A. We need to clean up, Attachment A. We need to clean up Attachment B. And I have to make some corrections on that, and I think then we could bring it back and be done. And we'll come up with something else other than calling it a central business district, because that does kind of confuse it with the actual code. But we're referring to this from a parking perspective, so we'll work on a different thing. We'll update the equation to match that so that it's more in line and not a ... So if you wouldn't mind, I'd rather clean all this up, bring it back, and we won't have to start over with the conversation because we've had a great one today. But and with this feedback, I'd like to go back and maybe clean this up a little bit more.
I appreciate that. I just want to ensure that this commission, if we could provide the items of the things that we talked about that they need to work on for us to come back next month and be diligent about potentially having a motion to either pass or not. But so clarifying Attachment A is one thing. With that, I think identifying in green, identifying where the CBD is and not, I think makes sense.
Give it another name.
Either give it another name or just put something below that says map is to identify the CBD district and not non-CBD. So to everybody's point, we know that non-CBD is considered East Nashville, Wedgewood, Houston, Gulch, all those other areas outside of here. To that, and I don't know how possible this is, but there are businesses outside of the CBD that operate past midnight that have valet. So to be consistent, I guess the CBD would be a baseline, but if somebody's applying for a permit and their operations are till 3 a.m. or 24/7 or whatever that may be, somehow, some way, I feel like it would be fair for them to be applied the CBD rate, even though they're not within the CBD. So
just for clarity, we do charge them for the hours of actual use. So if they're coming in and let's say they start at 5, but they want to go till 2, we are charging them till 2 a.m. today.
Okay.
And that is how the calculation works. So it's not, but from the perspective commercial use, we find a majority of the business and the commercial use outside of the inner core is actually pretty much done by midnight.
Okay.
Because they're more restaurants than they are,
Makes sense.
the entertainment district. So we'll come up with another way of calling the inner core.
Yep.
And then outside of it.
If we
So
can
it's
add-
not as confusing.
If we could add a paragraph around, the
Licensing.
parameters around what's required to apply for a permit. Like either the operator has to represent a business owner, the business owner can, but something just generally saying, it has been verified, or, this business has this operator that is a licensed operator to be able to obtain a permit.
Got it.
The licensing piece, of course, is something that's separate from this, but would be good to have as something to review as we're reviewing this. And please chime in if I'm missing anything that would like to be a hot item from anybody on the commission, let me know. But those 3 items, I believe, we're going to get rid of Exhibit B. Is that what I heard completely?
Yes, sir. And we'll clean up Exhibit A.
Okay. So I think we have those general guidelines on the record, and then if anything that you foresee cleaning up, like the equation or any of that. Any other questions or comments before I ask for a motion? Yes, sir, Commissioner.
As you go through it, you might want to make sure that you look, the parking meter shows up in the different configurations multiple times. So make sure that that's clear, that it's not necessarily related to a loss of a parking meter.
Thank you.
And for the sake of discussion, if you have a comment, if you don't mind coming up here and stating your name real quick for the record, just a quick comment. We usually, since we're deferring it, it'd be good to get all input. Excuse me, if you don't mind stating your name, just for the record.
This thing on? Jake Marshall, PMC.
Thank you.
I'd just like to ask that we're able to see these attachments in advance of next week's meeting. It's pretty difficult for us to ask questions. We're invited to ask questions at the beginning of this process, which I appreciate, but it's challenging for us to know what to ask. Some new aspects that have been changed since the last time we had seen this policy were unforeseen, and we'd just like the opportunity to review it so we know intelligently, right, what to ask. So if we can get that out in advance of the meeting or save the questions for the end before you all deliberate, I think either way would be prudent.
So just real quick, it's posted a week ahead of the meeting, the prior Monday before. Once it's delivered to the commission, it's then posted on the website. So you would be able to get everything on the website.
Understood. So we saw the staff analysis as well as the agenda for this meeting, but I did not see this policy included. If I missed it, then apologies.
We will ensure that the documents are posted to the website and sent out a week prior to the meeting, I believe is what we
Thank you.
said. So with that, I believe we have a general list and parameter. Do we have a motion to defer on this item? A second? There's been motion and a second to defer this item, just for clarity, 1 month, correct? All in favor? Any objections? Thank you for your time and discussion. With that, we'll move to item 7.2, authorization for 50-foot valet zone on the west side of 12th Avenue North at Grundy Street, effective 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. to 12 a.m., 7 days a week, requested by PMC, Parking Management Company. Mr. Mateus.
Yes, so this was something that was deferred from last month. We have revisited this area and we went through the path of travel for the valet operation itself. And we established that due to the existing traffic congestion and ongoing construction in the area, a valet zone at this intersection is not recommended in the future, and that we'll evaluate the need to locate a loading zone and other curbs usage, but does not recommend a valet zone at 12th Avenue North and Grundy at this time.
I'm sorry, what was your last name? You were on the list here for public comment. Would you like to speak to this? Please come forward.
Man, 2 in a row.
There you go.
Hi, Jake Marshall again. We saw this in the staff analysis a week ahead of time. I think there's a misunderstanding here about the route that we take. So that's not the garage that we park in, and neither do we access Porter nor 11th to access the garage at 1111 Church, which is the new Putt, I think it's called Putt Shack garage that's accessed off of Church Street, the lower church. And so we don't cross any bike lanes. It is true, as Emmanuel said, that the area is busy with construction and things like that. And that's frankly why valet parking is more necessary than when this commission previously approved this valet lane. Our whole purpose and reason for being, generally speaking, is that when convenient parking is unavailable, we're the people who take the vehicles and park them a block and a half away where you need to take the circuitous route to get to the garage, because otherwise it creates more congestion with patrons and potential patrons clogging up the street outside the restaurant. And that's the function that we're serving here for Mockingbird, Shohan, and the third restaurant that's coming in. So we would just like to argue vociferously in favor of this valet lane.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
I'm trying to figure out why there's such a disconnect between what you're telling us and what appears to be the interpretation of the thing. And is there a better map that shows exactly what you're doing? Because right now, I don't know what, you're telling me one thing and I've got staff telling me something else.
I don't know who controls this thing, but I can guide you there. So this is a little tricky to locate in this view, but essentially the restaurant's located on 12th. 12th is this weird street where Okay, so north, sorry, I'm a little disoriented here.
Can I can explain what this is the valet lane is on the right where those construction barriers are. And where your garage that you have not corrected, that is definitely not the right garage that they showed, but the garage is behind this. So you would have people pull in here.
Yep.
Park like that.
Yep.
And then go where?
So then that's when our team takes over. The restaurant controls around 18 private parking spaces immediately adjacent to the building, which worst case scenario we'll use for the valet operation. It's not ideal. But so the valet vehicles enter that lot, which is not large enough to accommodate the volumes that we'll get at the restaurant, comes back out to the street, goes north to, I think it's called Grundy. And then there's a little jog where you go over and 12th Avenue continues north before you take a right on Church to enter the garage.
So you're in the garage behind the putt shack? That garage? Your garage is past the putt shack, right?
Past the putt shack, you curl around and access it.
So you go down that road where it says road closed, and then to the right is the garage for the putt shack. Or not for the putt shack, but it's...
Yeah, it's in the same development, the same building on the north side of the building.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
can I ask some questions?
Absolutely.
So your staff's going to cut through the parking lot?
Turn around in the parking lot.
You sure about that?
It's the only solution we've got.
And I was the one that brought a lot of concern at the last meeting on this one too. And my thought was you were going to, park past that parking lot, make that left, and then start doing a loop. Are both of those locations on the application as parking?
I'm not 100% sure. We had a safety concern with the valet operating there and not having enough staff that would stay up with it. So therefore, the cars would get backed up, and this becomes a very active intersection at any given time of day and night. And we just had some very strong safety concerns just because we've had some issues in the past of just cars moving in general there with a lot of pedestrian activity happening as well. So we just didn't feel like it was a good site for valet altogether. Outside of even the problem with your concerns on crossing over the biking, when staff met, this was just felt like, we'd have some very strong issues with being able to keep up with the valet and not having it back up into the intersection and then creating some traffic issues, which is what has been actually witnessed with people just stopping and parking and leaving their car there. People still park, and it's a nightmare there on a lot of good nights.
I've never experienced valet parking at these restaurants, so this is before my time here in Nashville. And I mean this respectfully, that is just conjecture, right? If we keep up with the operation, then the speculation that we'll get backed up into the intersection is not relevant.
So let me ask you another question, if I may. How many folks are you going to be putting at this to run the valet operations? If you're going to be running the cars, doing a U-turn, running them for that, and put them in the parking lot and running back, how many folks do you plan on putting there every single night, operating from what time are you starting?
I don't recall, 4 or 5, I think.
4 or 5 till?
Probably 11.
11? How many folks would you put out there?
I'm guessing 2.
I would not agree with that number, and I feel like there would be stacking issue, and I'm not comfortable with that.
I think one
And
of the
neither
things-
was staff when they took a look at it from a traffic perspective.
So I'm gonna have to ask, this collaboration I would welcome outside of this commission. I think we have a question from the councilwoman here.
I think even without a valet stand, my question to NDOT would be how much does this back up? I think the valet pre-pandemic used to be actually on Grundy, not on 12th, and there was actually even a parking lot across the street, and it would get pretty backed up, but I haven't been there in a while, so I'm not sure.
To that pre-pandemic to now, the number of businesses and, just the structure with the added multifamily and things there, I don't know that the congestion is just the restaurant valet there either. But, it plays a part, and, the main thing here is this valet stand to help or.
And the road does tighten up as it heads toward 12th. So our concern is, we know we need to put, parking can only be on one side because of the width of the road. There's not enough room. And we've taken away the parking all the way toward up near Whole Food because we were having an issue up there and we've had a few crashes that occurred. So we just felt like it should, that whole thing coming around the curb, because it's kind of like an S-shaped curve, which to move the traffic. They felt like it would create a lot of problems, so it'd be a lot more comfortable. So you have it coming out of there, 12th going there, and then coming down Grundy, and then 12th back up. It would be better to have no parking on the west side of the road, and then leave, if there is going to be parking or unloading zones on the east side of the roadway, would be a much safer approach than having anything on the west side. And that's really where staff was leaning at, that there isn't enough width to have parking on both sides. And from a safety perspective, it is safer to be on the west side than it is to be on the east side of the street versus the west side of the street here. Excuse me.
Is all the construction done with the streets through here, or is there still more to do? I mean, the last time I've been through there was still under.
There's still a lot of construction left to do. Yes, sir.
So
All
we
the-
really don't know what the street is all going to be like until it's done almost.
So most of the underground and utility work has been done, so that is nice, but there's still a lot of construction going on in the area. And that's creating a lot of travel challenges because people have to choose different ways to move because we have roads closed and stuff to allow for movement and some additional utilities to go in. A lot of the hard utilities and the water lines and sewer lines are actually put in and connected. That's what the prior picture showed. That has been done, and that's why Grundy Street is opened up all the way over to 11th now. But there's still a lot of construction that's happening that is left to be done as part of this overall project.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
Well, I guess this is just kind of an idea here, but, we've been at this for a little while. It sounds like there may be some clarifications that could happen outside of this. Is this the type of thing that we should defer for another month, let the two parties kind of work out and then bring back? And it sounds like it should be a pretty good yes or no the next time.
Do not disagree with that. I would ask NDOT with regards to the public safety concern, is this something that has the time to be addressed within a month and can continue? Or is there an alternate provision with regard to public safety that could be addressed to allow the valet, as we defer this open-ended question? But you did bring up the concern for public safety and want to ensure that that's being addressed.
Yes, sir. So I would say if there is a compromise, it would be their operation being on the right side, happening on the east side of the street. Because again, our staff recommendation is that the west side would be no parking up the whole thing just because of this S turn, and then we would allow parking and unloading to occur on the east side of the street. So if that is something in consideration, I think there would be some opportunities that we feel would not actually create a conflict.
Is there an opportunity to proceed in that manner temporarily as we defer this to approach the west side of the street? Or is that looking to be a permanent
I'm more than happy to discuss that from what staff has shared with me. We definitely got to make sure a crosswalk is put in and that people aren't just crossing the street, that they're actually
Sure.
using the crosswalk. Because if you notice, there isn't a stop sign on Grundy, so they come whipping around that corner pretty quick. And that's the reason why we didn't want people out in the street, especially on that side of the street. But if they are doing valet parking on the west side, we need to make sure that people are appropriately crossing in the crosswalk and that it's safe. And then we need to address, Andrew, that corner right there, and maybe perhaps see if we can get, if a stop sign is warranted. Because I would like for folks to stop just to have more protection of not running down a pedestrian.
Yes.
While I appreciate the desire to set up something temporary, I mean, this area is kind of a hot mess. And I think giving it, my question is, can this even be worked out in a month, or do you need 2 months? But I'd be really uncomfortable with something temporary in this area, sort of given all the things that are happening. And so I just, yeah, is a month, you think, enough to figure this out, or do you need more time?
I think we could figure it out in a month. I don't think we can have it ready for operations in a month.
So the motion, or the recommendation from NDOT currently is to disapprove this valet request. Do we have a motion on that?
I make a motion to disapprove the valet request based on staff reports.
Is there a second? It has been first and second. Any discussion on the motion?
If the operator did want to bring it back and we did disapprove it, how quickly could that happen?
I do think we can sit down and figure out what would be reasonable and can work. Do we have any issues with being able to bring it back?
Yes, there is a provision in the rules of the commission that says you're supposed to wait, I think it's 6 months in between rehearing the same exact matter unless there's some kind of like new factual circumstances that have changed.
Is there a location on the east side currently?
No, sir. There's not a valet on the
If you
east
were
side.
looking at a stand on the east side, for example, that would be a different question.
Right.
No, there's not on the east side at this moment.
So there's potential to have a valet stand there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other discussion on the motion?
I mean, I would feel more comfortable if we got to the point that we just deferred this then, because if they're not operating now, we want to wait. You know, I think that we should give them as much opportunity as possible to come up with the safest route from restaurant to parking to your other parking garage, make sure that that's all clear, and then come back instead of setting up another 6 months of not having this.
So we have a motion and second on the table, and then we can vote on that motion. I think we've opened up the door for the east side that is available, and the reason why we put forth the motion was related to public safety, and there didn't seem to be a quality approach temporarily to adhere to that concern. So right now, and Ms. Costonas, correct me if I'm wrong, we do have a first and a second on removing the valet stand.
I don't think it's removing, it's disapproving it.
Or disapproving, I'm sorry, disapproving.
And I think just to clarify too, on the disapproval, they don't have to wait 6 months as long as it's a different plan that they present. And this current plan, I think it's pretty clear is not safe. And it's not just gonna become safe without changes to it.
I mean, an option that they could come up with is just parking just the valet in that one lot that's there, which I don't know if that would be materially different enough to change their timeline.
Erica just actually read the rule, which is Rule 11, Roman numeral 11, and it does say exactly what we said, and that once an appeal has been acted upon by the commission, there shall be a waiting period of 6 months before a citizen or council member is allowed to present the same appeal at the same location. This does not rule out the possibility of the commission choosing to reconsider a vote under normal parliamentary procedures. So under normal parliamentary procedures, if you change your mind, your options are reconsider, that's usually going to be the same day of the original vote, but you also have rescind and amend, which can be brought later. So you can move to rescind within the 6-month period, even with regard to the same location, just per following parliamentary procedures.
So they can bring it back.
No action,
Next month.
it does also provide that no action of the commission may be rescinded except by a 3/4 vote of the full membership of the commission. So that is a pretty high standard.
Okay. So there's an opportunity to put this on the agenda next month with our ability to rescind this motion for a new consideration. That's what I heard.
If I may, Mr. Chair,
Sure.
ask a question of Teresa.
Absolutely.
Teresa, if they come back in with another application in another location, they wouldn't have to do with it. We would be
That
then
would
doing
not
a
be
brand new
precluded.
review.
No, that would be fine to bring again. That would not be against the rule because it's a different location.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion?
I mean, I'm going to be a no on the motion just because a deferral would be easier. I hope you would consider that.
It's been first and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nope.
It has passed. Thank you for your questions and your comments.
Thank you.
Item 8.0, new business. We do not have any. 9.0, other items, we do have one. Go ahead, Ms. Lee.
Before everyone leaves, I want to say thank you to John Green. This is his last commission meeting that's going to leave me standing. And as the senior member, which is scary. John's been always prepared. He's been fair. He has chaired this commission during many wild times, including scooters. So it's great. So thank you, John.
You're more than welcome to come back for the next 6 months.
Yes, well, thank you, everyone. Yes, I have my phone. I just real quick, I just want to thank all the staff. I think Corby and I figured out that he and I have been the only ones been coming for 14 straight years. So, and I want to thank legal counsel for always keeping us legal, and all the staff that has worked over the years that I've gotten to know, and Ms. Alicorn, the director. But, one of the great things about this is you may not think it's important, one changing something on one street, but for the person who brings it, making that decision improves that person's quality of life on that street. So that's the thing so no matter how minor it may appear, what we do here improves the quality of life for someone on their street and make the roads safer. And so thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Move.
Good job, Mr. Chair. I'm so glad you came.
I was right there.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.